Denise Harper had worked the evening shift at the Grandview Hotel for nearly 12 years. At 43, she moved through the marble hallways with the kind of invisible grace that came from years of being overlooked. Her dark hands had scrubbed countless sinks, folded thousands of crisp white sheets, and wiped down mirrors until they gleamed like still water. She took pride in her work, even when guests walked past her as if she were part of the furniture. The Grandview sat in the heart of downtown, a towering monument to old money and new power. Politicians held quiet meetings in the suites. Executives closed deals over whiskey in the lounge. And Denise? She kept it all running, one room at a time. That Friday evening felt different. The air in the lobby buzzed with tension she couldn't name. Management had called an all-staff meeting that morning, reminding everyone about discretion and professionalism. A high-profile guest was checking in. They said, someone important. Someone who valued privacy above all else. Denise didn't ask questions. She never did. She simply nodded, collected her cart of cleaning supplies, and headed to the 14th floor where she'd been assigned extra rooms that night. By 9 o'clock, the hallway had grown eerily quiet. Most guests had gone out for dinner or settled into their rooms. Denise worked methodically, her thoughts drifting to her daughter Maya, who was studying nursing at community college. Every extra shift Denise picked up brought Maya one step closer to graduation. One step closer to a better life than scrubbing hotel bathrooms. She was replacing towels in room 1408 when she heard the elevator chime down the hall. Footsteps followed, heavy, deliberate, too many of them moving in sync. Denise glanced through the crack in the doorway and saw 5 men in dark suits stepping into the hallway. Their faces were hard, their movements coordinated like wolves circling prey. And at the center of their attention was the man from room 1412, the important guest. The billionaire everyone had been whispering about. Part 2. The trap tightens. Denise's pulse quickened as she watched the scene unfold. The billionaire, a man named Marcus Webb, according to the guest registry she'd glimpsed earlier, stood frozen outside his suite. He was younger than she expected, maybe in his late 40s. With graying temples and tired eyes that suddenly looked very afraid. The 5 men formed a loose semicircle around him, blocking any path to the elevator or stairwell. The one in front, tall with a scar trailing down his left cheek, spoke in a low voice that barely carried down the hall. Mr. Webb, we've been looking forward to this conversation. Marcus's hand trembled as he reached for his door card. I don't know what you want, but I'm calling security. Security won't help you, another man said, stepping closer. Not when you owe people the kind of money you do. Not when you've made the kind of enemies you have. Denise's breath caught. She should leave, slip away before they noticed her. That's what survival looked like for women like her. Keep your head down, mind your business, stay invisible. But something in Marcus's face stopped her. It was the same look her late husband Jerome had worn in the hospital when the doctor said there was nothing more they could do. Pure, helpless fear. The men moved closer. Marcus backed against his door, his voice rising. Please, we can work something out. Just give me time. Time's up. Scarface said. Denise made a decision that went against every instinct she'd honed over decades. She stepped out of room 1408, her cleaning cart rattling slightly as she pushed it into the hallway. 5 pairs of eyes snapped toward her. Evening, gentlemen, she said softly, her voice steady despite the terror clawing at her chest. I'm so sorry, but I need to get to that room right there. Hotel policy says all suites must be serviced before 10. The men stared at her. For a moment, nobody moved. Denise kept her expression neutral, humble, exactly what they expected from a maid. Just part of the scenery. Nothing to worry about. Scarface's jaw tightened. Come back later. I wish I could, sir, Denise replied, moving her cart forward slowly. But my supervisor tracks everything. I'll lose my job if I don't finish this floor tonight. Part 3. The hidden strength, the tension in the hallway, thickened like smoke. Denise could feel the men's eyes boring into her, calculating whether she was a problem worth dealing with. She kept her gaze down, her posture submissive, playing the role they expected. But inside, her mind raced through options, measuring distances, counting seconds. "You've got terrible timing, lady," one of the men muttered. Denise offered a small, apologetic smile. "Story of my life, sir. I'll be real quick, I promise." She maneuvered her closer to Marcus's door, deliberately placing herself between him and the men. As she bent down to retrieve a stack of towels, she whispered so quietly that only Marcus could hear. "When I say run, you run." His eyes widened slightly, but he had the good sense not to react otherwise. Scarface was losing patience. "Enough. Get out of here now. Or what?" Denise straightened up, her voice still soft but carrying a new edge. "You'll hurt a hotel employee in front of security cameras? Make a scene that brings the entire staff running?" For the first time, uncertainty flickered across Scarface's face. He glanced at the ceiling, where a small camera dome gleamed under the recessed lighting. Denise had cleaned around those cameras 1,000 times. She knew their angles, their blind spots, every inch of their coverage. What she also knew, what nobody at the Grandview knew, was that before she'd become a maid, before Jerome got sick and the medical bills crushed them, Denise had spent 6 years in the army. She'd served in military police, trained in hand-to-hand combat, learned how to read dangerous situations and de-escalate them, or escalate them when necessary. She'd left that life behind when Maya was born, traded her uniform for an apron because it paid the bills and kept her home at night. But the training never left. It lived in her muscles, her reflexes, her ability to stay calm when everything inside her screamed to run. "Look," she said, addressing Scarface directly now. "I don't know what business you gentlemen have, and I don't want to know. But if something happens on this floor tonight, every camera in this building gets reviewed. Every guest gets interviewed. Police get involved. Is that really what you want?" Part 4. The breaking point. Scarface's hand moved to his jacket, and Denise saw the outline of what could only be a weapon. Her heart hammered, but her face remained composed. She'd stared down worse than this in Baghdad, though that felt like a lifetime ago. "You're making a mistake," he said coldly. "Maybe," Denise replied, "but I'm still going to do my job." One of the other men shorter, with cruel eyes, stepped forward aggressively. "Who do you think you are? You're just a maid. Walk away before you get hurt." That word, just a maid. Denise had heard variations of it for years. Just a cleaner. Just a servant. Just another invisible black woman who didn't matter. The words used to cut deep, but she'd learned to wear them like armor. People underestimated what they couldn't see. Marcus found his voice, emboldened by Denise's presence. "She's right. You're on camera. You came here to threaten me, to hurt me maybe, but you didn't count on a witness." "Shut up," Scarface snapped, but his confidence was cracking. Denise took a calculated risk. She pulled her phone from her apron pocket, holding it up so they could see. "I've already texted my supervisor that there's a situation on 14. Security will be here in less than 3 minutes. You can leave now and nobody has to know why you came. Or you can stay and explain yourselves to the police." It was a bluff. She hadn't texted anyone yet, but her thumb hovered over the screen convincingly, and her voice carried the weight of someone who absolutely would follow through. The 5 men exchanged glances. Scarface's jaw worked furiously, rage and calculation warring in his expression. Finally, he jabbed a finger at Marcus. "This isn't over. Not by a long shot. We know where to find you. Then you can find him through his lawyers," Denise said quietly. in broad daylight, like civilized people. For a moment, she thought Scarface might lunge at her anyway. Violence radiated off him like heat. But the security camera blinked its red light overhead, and the elevator chimed somewhere down the hall, another guest returning to their room. The moment shattered. "Let's go," Scarface growled to his men. They retreated toward the stairwell, their footsteps echoing angrily against the walls. The door slammed behind them with enough force to rattle the paintings. Part 5. Trust in Shadows. The hallway fell silent. Denise's hands were shaking now, the adrenaline finally catching up to her. She'd held it together through sheer force of will, but now her knees felt weak. She gripped her cleaning cart to steady herself. Marcus stared at her, his face pale with shock. How did you? Who are you?" "Nobody important," Denise said automatically, then caught herself. "I'm Denise Harper. I work here. You saved my life." His voice cracked slightly. "Those men were going to kill me. Or kidnap me. I don't even know which, but nothing good was going to happen." Denise looked at him carefully. "What did you do to make enemies like that?" Marcus ran a hand through his hair, exhaustion written in every line of his face. "It's complicated. I made an investment that hurt some very dangerous people. They want their money back, plus interest, plus ... Revenge, I think. I came to this hotel because I thought I could hide for a few days while my lawyers worked something out, but they found me anyway." "They'll be back," Denise said. It wasn't a question. "I know." Marcus looked down the hallway toward the stairwell, as if expecting the men to reappear any second. "I need to leave. Get to the airport. Fly somewhere safe. But if they're watching the building ... They are," Denise confirmed. "Men like that don't give up after one try. They'll have people in the lobby, probably outside too. You walk out that front door and you won't make it to your car." Marcus sank against the wall, defeat settling over him. "Then I'm trapped." Denise thought for a moment, her military training kicking in again. There were always options, always another way out if you were willing to think outside the obvious paths. The Grandview was a fortress in some ways, but every fortress had its weak points. "Not necessarily," she said slowly. "I know this building better than anyone. Every service entrance, every delivery route, every camera blind spot. I can get you out." Marcus looked at her with a mixture of hope and disbelief. "Why would you do that? You don't know me. You don't owe me anything." Part 6. The escape plan. Denise met his eyes directly. "Because it's the right thing to do. And because I've seen what happens when good people stand by and let bad things happen. I won't be that person." The words hung between them, heavy with meaning. Marcus nodded slowly, something like respect dawning in his expression. "Okay, what do we do?" "First, you can't look like you," Denise said, her mind already working through the logistics. "Those men will have spotters watching for a businessman in an expensive suit. We need to make you invisible." She thought of Jerome again. Her late husband had been about Marcus's height and build. After he passed, she'd kept some of his clothes, unable to let go completely. A few items still hung in her locker downstairs in the staff area. Practical things. A maintenance worker's uniform. "Come with me," she said. "And stay close." They moved quickly, but carefully, avoiding the main elevator and taking the service stairs instead. Denise led Marcus through a maze of employee corridors he never knew existed, narrow passages behind the luxury facade. Warehouse keepers and maintenance workers moved unseen. These were her hallways, her territory. Here, she wasn't invisible. Here, she knew every corner dot in the basement staff room. Denise retrieved Jerome's old work uniform from her locker. Navy blue shirt, matching pants, steel-toed boots that were only slightly too small for Marcus. She handed him the bundle along with a Grandview maintenance cap. "Change quickly," she instructed. And here, she grabbed a toolbox from a storage shelf. Carry this. Look like you're headed out to fix something. Marcus changed in a utility closet while Denise kept watch. When he emerged, he looked completely different. The polished billionaire had vanished, replaced by what appeared to be just another tired maintenance worker at the end of his shift. Perfect, Denise said. Now, we use the loading dock. There's a delivery van that comes every night at 10-30- commercial laundry service. The driver's name is Raymond. He's a good man, and he owes me a favor. How do you know all this? Marcus asked. 12 years, Denise replied simply. You learn things when people forget you're there. Part 7. The final confrontation. They made it to the loading dock without incident. Raymond was exactly where Denise knew he'd be, loading industrial-sized bags of linens into his white van. He looked up in surprise when he saw them approach. Denise? What's going on? Ray, I need your help. This man needs to get to the airport without being seen. Can you take him? Raymond looked between them, confusion and concern mixing on his weathered face. He'd worked with Denise long enough to trust her judgment, but this was asking a lot. Before he could answer, footsteps echoed from the service corridor behind them. Denise's stomach dropped. She turned to see two of the men from upstairs, not Scarface, but two of his crew emerging from the shadows. They must have anticipated this exit. Going somewhere, Mr. Webb? One of them called out. Marcus froze, but Denise stepped forward, positioning herself between the men and her escape route. Her hands stayed relaxed at her sides, but every muscle in her body coiled with readiness. Raymond, get in the van and start the engine, she said quietly, never taking her eyes off the approaching men. Denise, now Ray. He hesitated only a second before obeying. The van's engine rumbled to life. The two men advanced, their intentions clear. They weren't going to let Marcus leave. But they'd made a critical mistake. They'd underestimated the woman standing in their way when the first man lunged at her. Denise moved with the fluid precision of someone who'd never forgotten her training. She sidestepped his grab, used his momentum against him, and swept his legs. He hit the concrete hard, the air rushing from his lungs. The second man pulled a knife, his face twisted with rage. You're dead. Denise didn't let him finish. She grabbed a bag of laundry from Raymond's cart and swung it like a club, connecting solidly with the man's wrist. The knife clattered away. Before he could recover, she followed up with a sharp elbow to his solar plexus that dropped him to his knees, gasping. Get in the van, she shouted to Marcus. He scrambled into the back, and Denise jumped into the passenger seat. Raymond didn't need to be told twice. He threw the van into gear and peeled out of the loading dock. Tires squealing against the pavement. Part 8. Peace after the storm. They drove in tense silence for several blocks before Raymond finally spoke. Denise, what the hell was that? Something that needed doing, she replied, watching the side mirror to make sure they weren't being followed. In the back, Marcus sat among the laundry bags, looking shell-shocked. You took them down like it was nothing. Where did you learn to do that? Army, Denise said simply. Long time ago. They reached the airport 40 minutes later. Raymond pulled up to the departure terminal, and Marcus climbed out, still wearing the maintenance uniform. He looked at Denise through the passenger window, struggling to find words. I don't know how to thank you. You risked your life for me, and you don't even know me. Denise smiled gently. I know you're a man in trouble who needed help. That's enough. Now go. Get somewhere safe, and maybe think about making different investments in the future. Marcus laughed, a sound of pure relief. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a business card. When this is over, when it's safe, please contact me. I want to repay you properly. I don't need repayment. Maybe not, Marcus said. But your daughter, Maya, right? I heard you mention her earlier. She's studying nursing? Let me pay for her education. Let me do something that matters. Denise's breath caught. She thought of Maya, working 2 part-time jobs while going to school, exhausted but determined. She thought of all the extra shifts she'd worked, the years of sacrifice. And she thought of how one moment of courage could change everything. Okay, she whispered. Okay. Marcus disappeared into the terminal, and Raymond drove Denise home. She sat quietly, processing everything that had happened. When she finally walked through her apartment door at midnight, Maya was still up, studying at the kitchen table. Mom! I was worried. You're never this late. Denise hugged her daughter tight, breathing in the familiar scent of her shampoo. I'm fine, baby. Everything's fine. And it was. 3 weeks later, Marcus's lawyers called. The debt was settled, the dangerous man arrested on other charges. And Maya received a letter from a scholarship foundation, full tuition, room, board, and a stipend for living expenses. Funded anonymously. Denise never told anyone the full story. She went back to work at the Grandview, back to her quiet shifts and invisible labor. But sometimes, when she passed by room 1412, she smiled. She'd been called just a maid all her life. She'd proven that there was no such thing as just anything.